welcome to Embodied Harmonics Yoga. My name is Samuel, and we've been looking at some suggestions for you to get your home yoga practice off the ground. In this video, I'd like to talk about the equipment that you might need to be practicing yoga at home. The first thing that you're going to want is a mat. The standard thickness is 1/8 of an inch or so. Thinner mats are available. They're usually called travel mats. And thicker mats are available, and they're going to be advertised as such. They're going to say extra thick yoga mat on the label. You might be interested in a thicker yoga mat if your knees are sensitive, because we do a lot of poses on the hands and knees in yoga. So if you're on hands and knees and your knees don't like the ground, then a thicker mat can provide some cushion and comfort. I don't like the thicker mats because there's also a lot of poses we do where the hands are on the ground, like in downward dog, which you may have an idea of what that looks like, or when we're balancing with our feet on the ground. The extra thickness can actually make the ground feel like it gives out underneath your hands or your feet, and possibly even cause your wrists and your ankles to have to work harder than they want to. So if you do need some cushion, I recommend having a towel or a yoga blanket or something that you can fold up and place under your knees when you're doing a pose that involves the knees being on the ground. But some people really like the thick mat, so if you give it a try and you like it, then do that. That's great. A block. If you can afford it, I would get 2. If you're a really tight person and you're working on opening up your body and finding flexibility, just imagine being in a standing pose and then reaching down and having to touch the ground. If your fingers don't touch the ground, do you really want to be pushing yourself lower? No, you might hurt yourself. So it's great to then have a block that you can bring your hand down onto to bring the earth higher up. That way you can do the pose and be a little bit more stable and safe. Blocks can be made out of cork, and those have a nice feel to them. They're really hefty, but they are more expensive. And there are certain things that you might do with a block in a therapeutic style or in Iyengar, or maybe even a restorative yoga class, or even vinyasa classes. I do work with blocks all the time, where you will lay back over a block with the idea that the corner of the block kind of gets in between the vertebrae and helps you open up some stuck spots. The cork block can be really intense. And so I prefer a foam block, and I prefer the firm foam blocks. There are some that are squishier and that give a lot more. And if you are lying back over the block, that might be more comfortable perhaps. But then when you go to use it for support and you put any weight on it and it squishes and gives, that just doesn't seem very supportive to me. So I recommend a firm block, and if it is uncomfortable lying over it, just take a little hand towel and drape it over the block for the extra cushion. Again, if you can afford 2, awesome. If not, 1, totally fine. And if you can't afford to get yourself a block, anything that you can use to bring the ground up, like a small stack of books or a large firm water bottle or something else that you can use for support, have nearby. And anytime the teacher says grab a block, that's your prop. You can use that. You won't be able to use something like that for lying over, but that's okay. You can get by substituting other things for the block. Strap. Straps are great. You can use straps to loop around the foot and stretch the hamstrings. You can hold straps, between your hands and get really nice shoulder stretches going on. Straps are a great way to close the distance between your hands and your feet, or your hands and your hands. I recommend, don't go cheap. If you're going to get a strap, don't go cheap. I did, and this is what happened. The part of the buckle that was supposed to hold the strap in place just popped right off, and that was really startling to me because I was using it and really like pulling on the strap and applying pressure, and then it just gave. This one is much better, right? The metal buckle part is like 4 times as thick as that one, so it's way more durable. Even better, at least what I like better, are the plastic buckles that are kind of like a seatbelt, and you plug the one end into the other, and then you squeeze the little release levers to unplug it. I had already spent, money on like 20 straps of this kind, so I don't have any of the plastic buckle ones, but I like them much better. Also, I would get straps that are 8 feet long. There are shorter ones, like this other one is a 6-foot strap. And the reason I recommend the 8-footer is because if you are doing something where the teacher asks you to make a big loop out of the strap, and we do this for a number of reasons. There's a lot of ways to like harness up the body using a looped strap to give support and let us melt into a pose. The 8-foot strap gives you a lot of loop to work with. If you're a tall person, you're probably definitely going to need the 8-footer. But even if you're like a medium height like myself or a shorter person, it really sucks to make a big loop out of your strap and then realize it's not big enough to accommodate the pose that we're trying to achieve. So an 8-foot strap with a nice firm buckle of some kind, the plastic clip or the metal loops, either way, would be great. If you don't want to spend money on a strap, not a problem. You can substitute any length of fabric. You can use like an old towel or a bathrobe tie. You can use an old belt, an old shirt, right? Really anything that lets you bridge the distance. Again, bridge the distance between the hands and the feet. So you can have something to hold on to instead of just hanging out in space and like suffering. Please don't suffer. If you're using a makeshift strap, obviously you won't be able to make it into a big loop, so it would not be suitable for like a restorative yoga class. For a restorative yoga class, you're definitely going to want actual yoga props. Blanket. Yoga blankets tend to be woven blankets, and they also tend to be like firm, because again, we use them to support the body from underneath, so you don't want something super squishy that's going to give underneath you. It's nice to have a dedicated blanket for your practice because, we sweat and it can get a little bit gnarly over time. So maybe not using the blanket that you sleep with, but again, do what you can. The blanket can be used to pad the knees if you're on hands and knees. You can use it to cover yourself in Shavasana. That's the final pose of most classes where you lie down and relax. And there's other ways that you can use it to, like sometimes I'll have my students roll it up and then lie back over the blanket to help open the chest. If you are doing an active class like Hatha or Vinyasa, you probably won't need a bolster, but they can still be nice. At the end of class during Shavasana, you can drape your knees over the bolster and lie back, and that can feel really good. But if you're doing Iyengar, you will probably want to get a bolster because there's a lot of modifications that call for one. If you're doing restorative yoga, you're definitely going to need a bolster, maybe even 2. Again, if you're short on cash and you can't afford one option is to get some towels and blankets and fold them up and then stack them to be an appropriate height and thickness so you can approximate a bolster. Okay, let's talk tech. If you're doing yoga at home, If you're using books to build your practice, that's all you need. The books and whatever setup for your space. If you're going online, you're going to need a device that can connect to the internet. A bigger screen is better if you have to look at the teacher or the model to follow along. Like pre-recorded classes and classes where the teachers are demonstrating, often you need to see what's going on in addition to hearing the cues to be able to keep up. And you don't want to be trying to do that on your little phone screen. But again, if that's all you have, then just make do your best. Phone will be fine. But if you can use a laptop, great. And if you can connect your device to a television screen, that might be an even better option. If you are doing a class where you can follow along just by listening, which I highly recommend, it is such a difference to let the instruction come in through your ear rather than having to watch. So if you do find a class like that, then speakers might be really helpful so that you're not fighting to hear what the teacher is saying, but that the sound is very present in the room and easy to hear. If you have to look at the screen, situate the screen so that it is easy to see. I saw an advertisement for, some online yoga something, and the instructor had their class on a flat screen TV that was mounted on the wall. And the student, the model who was playing the student, was in plank pose on the ground, and she was like craning her neck up to look at this flat screen TV on the wall. And of course, she's got this big smile because that's what you do in advertising. And I thought to myself, why are you smiling? That cannot be comfortable, and it can't be good for your neck either. So think about your space and position your device so that it's easy to see if you need to look. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below. If you think of a piece of yoga equipment that I haven't mentioned, again, please feel free to mention it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And please do like and subscribe. It helps this channel grow a lot. Thanks so much, and I will see you in our next video.